Welcome to D&D Out Loud with Ben Riggs. Episode 79. 3 poets turn to RPG design.
Welcome to D&D Out Loud with Ben Riggs. I am Ben Riggs, apparently controversial D&D historian and author of Slaying the Dragon, A Secret History of Dungeons and Dragons. And over the past 13 years of writing and podcasting, I have met hundreds of creative geniuses in and around the world of tabletop role-playing games. Here on this show, I ask 3 of these flaming torches of the human imagination to come on and have a fascinating discussion, which I then record and send out into the world. And I want to start by introducing Adam Good and Jamie Perez, the twin minds behind my favorite role-playing game product of 2025, An Infinity of Ships, which I will read sections from later. I guess the shortest way I would describe it to you is it's a system, well, ship porn, actually. That's the best way to put it. Like, I don't know if anyone has said that before. Maybe it was even from your marketing materials, was it?
No, unless kind of the intern that snuck in there and did something like that.
Product kit revision coming.
Yeah, it is clearly ship porn. Like, if you are into sci-fi role-playing games, this is your book of like, oh, look at all these cool ships with amazing, beautiful illustrations and tons of random tables. My 4-year-old has enjoyed flipping through it as well because it's so beautiful. But before I just launch into saying lots of nice things about it, I want to say welcome, Jamie and Adam.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Also with us is Justin Sirois, publisher at Severed Books and author of Sickest Witch, a D20 folk horror role-playing game. Welcome, Justin, and tell me about Sickest Witch.
Hey, thank you for having me, Ben. Sickest Witch, gosh, in short, it's a folk horror game where every body, every person is a commodity, meaning that in order to cast magic, you have to harvest body parts from hopefully a bad person and imbue them with power. So I feel that it is sort of a metaphor for the body as a commodity and the body as a precious item, quite literally in the game. So it makes players address certain moral and ethical things all the time with anybody that they meet. There's other stuff in Sickest Witch, but that's the main hook.
That sounds very cool. I did not know anything about it until Adam and Jamie asked to have you on, but that sounds incredibly good.
Well, thanks.
Is it? I assume it's on drive-through.
It's on drive-through. I got the hardcover here. If you go to severedbooks.com or sickestwitch.com, copies.
All right.
Yep.
Very cool. I would like to read a little bit from Infinity of Ships, if you don't mind. And this is my favorite ship. I guess let's see if people can see this ship. Let's see.
Of course. Yeah.
So this is one bread and one body, a Vesper class free scout, and the ship looks rather insectoid. The Vesper class scouts are harvested from an ancient semi-sentient asteroid belt. The pilots who find and hatch them work only during evening prayers and name them after whichever prayer they were reciting at the time of discovery. The bonding ceremony lasts for 1 standard month, during which the pilot slowly liquefies into the ship's digestive propulsive neural tract before calcifying into its central sensory substrate. Harvester pilot, before the bonding ritual left, after the, so it's saying, hey, this is the size of the pilot compared to the ship. after the bonding process, the pilot can physically manifest as a swarm of void-proof prism ants scurrying over the exterior of the ship to repair and reinforce it, or interface with other sentient systems and vessels through highly choreographed mirror dance and musical telepathy. Now, I can't recall how I found the Infinity of Ships Kickstarter, but it became a constant joy in my life because again, the ships are just absolutely gorgeous. They're beautiful. They're both incredibly sci-fi and very punk rock at the same time. And so I had the joy of like looking at these ships and anticipating the product, and then you sent out coloring pages. And my 4-year-old loved that. Let me tell you, like, you know, it was a daily request to go and color spaceships from this Kickstarter. But the reason that I love your book so much is because it has a density of great ideas, while at the same time being totally system neutral, which again, when I saw the Kickstarter, I was like, I kind of wish it was Mothership or Stars of That Number or something. But now that I have it, I'm like, oh no, it doesn't need a system. Like it's kind of perfect the way it is. I'm not like that ship needs stats. I'm like, oh no, I just needed to know about the bonding ritual where the pilot dissolves in its digestive tract. Like that's the important thing here. So, I mean, I have 1,000 questions, I guess, about this. I will simply start with when you do play a sci-fi role-playing game, Adam and Jamie, what do you like to play?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I'll let Jamie go first.
It started as like we thought it was going to be a Mothership book when we started, and we noodled on this for a long time, and we played it across a lot of different systems on the way there. But when we were getting real about it, Mothership was more narrow. Like you remember, like in the early days of Mothership, it was very much space horror, alien, and you know it's still very good for that. But I think its universe has expanded so much since, and when we were doing it, it almost felt like we were messing with them if we got as expansive as we wanted to get. So when I run games, I still don't know why everybody doesn't just play Black Hack clones everywhere all the time. It's just like I love the simplicity of it. I love a roll under. That's what I tend to use. But we have run it with Mothership. We've run it with Black Hat clones. Adam, you're an Into the Odd guy, so we've done it with that as well.
Wow. Yeah, and when we first started doing station stuff, it wasn't about the ships specifically. It was just kind of freeform, wondrous sci-fi on weird space stations, because we kind of gravitate more towards the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Valerian and the City of Thousand Planets, like just wild and weird and wonderful. And I was using a hack, an Apocalypse World hack, just a homebrew, because I really like that system. It's the system that I first kind of fell in love with. So, yeah.
And I guess when I ran, go for it, Justin.
I was just gonna say, like, for me, it was cool to see you guys, because the three of us come from a poetry background and like geographically the same one. To see the system neutralness of ships allow you guys to have the freedom to be poetic. Yeah. Where I feel like if you had chosen a system, like what Jamie said, it would have just kind of just funneled you into a specific language. Totally. And yeah, you guys crushed it. Like you guys had the freedom to like dream huge and dream weird, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The last full game I ran, Ben, like every player was from a different culture. And so I did a system 0 to understand the kind of game they played and wanted to play. And so they each actually were playing a different system. And it just like really amped up that like everyone could barely communicate. Like half the sessions were people just trying to understand each other. And it was, using systems for fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking to the sort of like freedom of language and ideas that Justin was mentioning, and Ben, your point about the expansiveness and just the sheer bonkersness of a lot of it. A lot of this stems back at, Justin said, me and Jamie and Justin know each other for a long time. At one point, Justin mentioned this genre called witch house. And I was like, man, that is a cool name for a genre. It was just like witch and house, and you put them together. And I was like, that's really cool. And then I started kind of combining other different music genres in my head. And then I ended up making a whole generator to just create farm music genres just by mashing stuff up. And that sort of that sort of mentality is similar to the Spotify playlist that I started when we were first running games. So I just started a Spotify playlist of song titles that I thought would make really cool spaceship names. And so just like whenever I was listening to anything, like any kind of music, I like really expansive taste. It's like, oh, that's a ship name. That's a ship name. That's a ship name. Or that's a technology. That's a technology. And so it is very much like a all over the place genre mashup. With a skew towards like the wild and wonderful, but there's some like kind of dark, spooky, weird stuff in there too. If people want to get really dark with it, we've got that too.
Well, okay, now I have to ask about how you all know each other and you all have a poetry background.
So Justin had this really great small press going in Baltimore that was focused on doing recordings, originally called Narrow House. I was running a poetry blog called Rock Heels, which was what the cigarette boxes on a club I used to bartend and book at had. And we just kind of like, I don't know, I got our chocolate in each other's peanut butter, and along with a few other people, published poetry books in Baltimore for
10 years.
10 years. Yeah. And Adam, I knew Adam from DC where I work and have worked most of my career. And I just knew him coming up in the poetry scene there. And so just everything triangulated, and Baltimore's gravity kind of dragged Adam toward it. I'm going to steal your best quote about poetry, which I forget. No, tell who said this on stage.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite quotes, period. But we were particularly in like the experimental avant-garde poetry scene, right? So like a niche of a niche of a niche. And one of the first readings I went to, this poet came, and it was like, I think at Georgetown, it was one of their reading series, and there were like 20 people in the audience, and this was like a big deal guy. He was like really good, and he was like, at poetry there are tens of dollars at stake, which I always liked, because it was like, okay, cool, like I know what I'm signing up for. So we were coming up in the DC poetry scene and the performance art scene and the music scene, and we were just all playing with language and having a good time. We've all done poetry readings or novel readings together in various combinations in DC and Baltimore, and then we just kind of stayed in touch. And then Justin was like, hey, there's these things called role-playing games, and Justin with Severed started all this really cool stuff, and then that kind of brought me and Jamie into like thinking about doing gaming stuff, and having that as an outlet for our kind of creative purposes.
It's infection.
Please go ahead.
I just I love that our backgrounds still inform what we do. I feel like the language stuff, the poetic stuff, is still really important to the three of us. And but then on the flip side, like once you start playing and making games, it is just so fun, and the community, every scene has its upsides and downsides or whatever. But I feel like the gaming community, like the collaboration piece and the kindness piece, is sort of baked in for the most part. And it's just awesome. It just feels great, you know.
I came up I guess 1E kid. I don't, I played basic in a box, and then expert in a box, and then advanced, as a kid. And there's so much creativity in it. I played other role-playing games growing up, the Marvel Superheroes game back in the day, and just everyone should know that the Q manual from that 007 role-playing game, everybody should own that. It's one of the best resource books ever created. But it was so creative.
This is a TSR James Bond game?
It is. I don't think it is. Is it TSR? Victory Games. Victory.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right behind me. It's really torn up. But what was so amazing is, like, when Justin started making games and put together a play test group, like, it just like brought so much back for me. And then since he was in the indie world of it, I just didn't realize how close the player was to the creator, or could be, because you don't think that way when you're a kid. But in the intervening years, there's the DIY, punk rock communities, indie rock communities, and all that space just collapses. And then as a creator, the space between the creator and the audience is so much closer in gaming too. Like the feedback loops you get, and thank God, maybe this will lead to the first time where someone just totally wants to destroy us, right? Maybe this podcast will get us there. But it's just always, it's always been good energy. And when you're putting yourself out there, you need that, you need that to keep going. So it's just been fantastic.
Wow. Where to go with that? I'm gonna let's get really theoretical here. So, nice. Gosh, Robert Pinsky, poet laureate. I think he said poetry is the shape of air in your body when you're reading it aloud. I've had game designers on for a year and a half now, and the going theory has always been that a given role-playing game is a machine that makes stories, and a role-playing game session is in some ways a story. And then about a month ago, I had Jay Dragon on here, who made Wander Home, and she was like, no. A role-playing game session is not a story. It's just a bunch of stuff that happens. It's an experience. A role-playing game is a machine for generating an experience. And I'm like, that's incredible. Like, I don't know what I'm still processing it.
Yeah.
Part of me would argue, well, if it's just an experience, isn't that just a way of saying that a role-playing game is a thing where a bunch of stuff happens? And isn't that so basic as to be useless? I don't know. But I'll have her on again and ask her these questions. But I guess what I'm working up to is this. To your mind, what is poetry? And has the business of your creative life, in what way has it changed as you've moved from poetry to game design?
I think I'll throw back another quote because it's the epigraph for Infinity of Ships is a line by our friend Chris Toll, who was a great poet and artist in Baltimore, and one of the kindest, wisest people I've ever known. And he has a line in one of his poems, which is, it's the job of poetry is not to explain the mystery. The job of poetry is to make the mystery greater. And I think that's the magic, and that's the energy that I get from poetry and from language play. And I think that's the kind of game experience that I like to have, which is you're coming in with these pieces that in collision get amplified and agitated, and then open up all of these potential futures, and possibilities. And when you're with a group of people, you're sort of molding those into this thing together. And it is, it does feel like a very spiritual experience, like when it's on a certain plane, that you are, expanding the space for the mystery and exploring it together. Yeah,
that's, I think, one thing that I struggled with when I made the transition, because I had gone from poetry to fiction to gaming, was how literal game writing needs to be. And I mean, I still struggle with this now because I'm even with Sickest Witch, like I have this like very prose mentality. I'm trying to hold things back. I'm trying to restrain and constrain because like that's what we were taught for 30 years. Like, don't say it. Just don't say it yet or at all. You know, like have the reader be asking 3 more questions when you're done, and that's what happens. That's where the magic and the power is. So I still struggle with this style of writing where you're writing manual, you know, in the end that has to be interpreted and turned into an experience or a story or however you want to frame it. I think there's a cool middle ground that maybe the 3 of us are achieving somehow. But heck, I miss poetry a lot. I think I miss it more every day. Like as I mature, I'm like, God darn, like I wish I could just sit down and make myself feel good by writing just a 3-line banger, you know,
Yeah.
a buck downs, you know, I'm gonna throw his name out there.
Yeah.
Because it just feels so great when you emote succinctly like that. It feels so good.
Yeah. For me, like poetry is just, I mean, it's like the quantum mechanics of language and thought for me, right? Like it's so expansive and it can just swallow everything. And for folks like us that are like have had poetry in our life, it does swallow everything. For gaming, I go back to where like poetry and theater intersect, like early Sam Shepard and all those folks, and of course all the absurdist stuff, and then also like a lot of the poetry groups we were involved with were involved in a lot of game playing, like Ulipo and things like that, which are a lot of language games and stuff.
Flarf.
Yeah, and Flarf. Oh my lord, yeah, like Google-driven poetics, you know, and
Dark Brandon. Sorry.
yeah. But when I'm writing game material, I feel like I'm writing a set, like the setting for a play, and only like some smidgen of its characters, you know, and you're just, I mean, to what Jay was saying, like you're creating an opportunity, like you're writing an opportunity, you know, and I struggle with what you struggle with, Justin. Like I struggle to not put everything on rails and just like ram people down because like this needs to be so fun. So when I actually run a game, I need to write less and less, and I improv more and more, and bring a lot of improv tools into it. I always use a tarot deck when I'm DMing, just to have something that's going to mix it up and just get me off the rails, you know. So that's the intersection of poetry and gaming for me, for sure. But I don't know, like Adam and I have been messing with cards a lot lately, and I mean, I just think about like when we would all play poker or something like that. The joy of the night is everything that happens around the poker game, right? Like the poker game creates the experience of you hanging out with your friends and like talking about stuff, you know. And I think games can be the same, and I think that might be a little bit of what Jay's getting at too.
Wow.
No, I will not invite 3 poets onto my podcast.
I mean, I'll ask the most obvious follow-up, which is, can you tell me how you use a tarot deck in your gaming?
Yeah, tons of ways. First of all, it's a great prop. So if your party ever has to get on a boat, it is the perfect size. And then now your boat has character too. I also will use it for initiative, assigning cards to players and shuffling them for initiative. Use it for unexpected effects. Instead of rolling on a table, you pull a tarot card, and I've set a timer and say, hey, what does this 5 of cups mean? And the timer goes down, and if they don't come up with something together in the time, then it's something really terrible or weird. But I've used it for all kinds of ways. I've used it to create body swapping and characters, and I don't know, it's really, really improv.
Have you seen the Looney Oracle?
No, like Looney Games.
Yeah. Looney Games, the Flux people.
Yeah.
So they made a unocculty version of a tarot deck, and I teach 7th and 8th grade, and I always was like, oh man, I'd love to have a tarot deck in the classroom. I could do so many things with it, but it's kind of occulty, and there's some naked ladies. So then the Looney Oracle comes along, and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic.
Nice.
So, and it's so strange that I have you guys on this week, because my 7th graders had to write sonnets and the 8th graders had to choose between villanelles and sestinas, and that was their work this week. So a lot of it was, I don't know what to write a sestina about, and I'm like, well, take the Looney Oracle and get some brainstorming done.
There you go.
I ended up with a lot of Christmas, a lot of Thanksgiving. One 7th grader wrote a sonnet that's basically a diss track against death. Which, like, I'd never, like, at 15 years of doing this, I'd never seen a sonnet that was a diss track against death. And I'm like, this is magnificent. Some of the 8th graders are getting pretty teenagery though.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, what's the point of poetry? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm never going to use this. And then, I come over later and they're using Chat GPT to generate, again, like a diss track against the 6-7 meme. Are you familiar with the 6-7 meme?
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, they're just cackling at this. The ChatGPT is writing a poem, and they think it's really, really funny. So I guess I'm going to ask this question. So, say 30 years ago, games were this niche community, much smaller than they are now, likely like a 10th the size. And yet, clearly, there was a thirst in the culture for what gaming offered. And I would certainly say I see in my 7th and 8th graders that there's still a thirst for what poetry offers. Do you think there's a way that poetry could learn something from gaming about how to make that transition to, where, Edna St. Vincent Millay was like a best-selling author 100 years ago. How do we get back to that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think, especially coming from the types of poetry, like that we've been into and that have written and continue to write, which can feel very obtuse and impenetrable. And when I say like we're like in the experimental poetry music scene, a lot of times I'll kind of contrast that to the average poem you'd read in the New Yorker, which is like, if you just read it, it's narrative, right? It's going to be an expression of someone's emotions or an exploration of an idea, but it's still going to be in somewhat straightforward language. Whereas we were, stuff that we would read would be someone who literally transcribed pages from a newspaper word for word, and that was the poem, or just weird different experimental things. But one of the things that I started thinking the more I started doing like performances is that there was a power in the language play that if you were just listening to it as a poem, you go, okay, that's interesting, or you just bounce off of it. But the forces that were unleashed in it, I thought were pretty understandable. So I started doing more like performance lectures where I'd be like, okay, like I'm doing a thing. Here's the thing. Now you can do it. Here's how you do it. And I think from gaming, to come back to your question about like what could poetry learn from gaming, there's that like clarity and instruction. Like most games are invitational and instructional, right? They're like, here, come in. Here's this world. Here's how you play in it. And I think poetry writ large, or there are poets who are exploring that, but that idea of just being very like, here's what it is. It's not a secret. It's not magic. It's, here's what it is. Here's how to do it.
Yeah, I think sorry, I'm gonna do a turnstile quote. You got to see it live you know.
Mm.
And that for me, like Heather Crystal, poet from I think Atlanta, came through 10 years ago, and her entire set was from her memory, and it was just I couldn't look away. I mean, it was just like, holy cow! Like she knows every single one, and they're all great. Uh, I'll never forget that. So I think like, you take your 9-year-old, your 10-year-old to see Aesop Rock for the first time, and they never forget it. They see Dan Deacon for the first time or whoever. It's like Critical Role is huge for a reason. I think the age of YouTube, when you see these people, these genius people perform, it's transformative. And I think if poetry could really embrace that more and make it more fun, maybe more people would be turned on to it.
Could you say those names again, please?
Oh yeah, so Heather Crystal. I think do you guys know where she's from?
I thought she was from closer to here, but I don't know. That's a Google away.
Yeah, Heather Crystal and Turnstile, the band. I was just quoting Franz.
Oh, and then the other one you mentioned was Aesop Rock, the rapper.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Baltimore musician.
My bad. Yeah.
The
new Aesop Rock album is awesome. It's so funny. It's so good.
The space between like all of that, like that kind of music. I mean, first of all, poetry sells extremely well in America. I don't know if you've heard of this thing, Spotify, but it just like kind of pours out poetry like 24/7. There's so much poetry on it. It doesn't pay well to the artists, I guess. But poets like Ross Gay, poets like Hanif Abdurraqib, these people that are much more direct, and their experimentalism is in like the range of human emotion, and it's incredible, and it'll floor you. And I think what everything needs from, say, indie gaming is like dropping the goddamn gatekeeping, right? Like dropping the like experts are different than you. And this is something I think, indie gaming brings in from indie rock. Who knows which one started first? I'm not going to pretend to be a historian of indie gaming or anything. But kind of dropping those barriers. And what gaming always does is it invites the players in to create a story, right? And the more that poetry communities do that, the more they thrive. There's a reason spoken word blew up when it blew up, and there's a reason it's still around, even if you're not into it, just because it's so participatory and so invitational. So I think poetry is just always swallowing the now, right? Like what was like Wordsworth doing? He was like putting the language of today into poetry, which if you look at it now, it's definitely not. But what is Kendrick doing? He's putting the language of today into poetry, and he like destroys with internal rhyme and all kinds of like poetic complexity that like will just like blow your mind, So I think poetry needs to take from gaming the destruction of barriers between audience and and speaker, so yeah.
Any thoughts on the New York Times getting people to memorize? I forget the name of it, but we were very tired. We were very merry. We had gone back and forth all night on the ferry. It was bare and bright and smelled like a stable. But we looked into the fire. We leaned across the table. It's a Spanish title for it, but I forget the name of the poem. But did you guys follow that at all last year?
I did not, but I will tell you the thing that always makes me feel like a bullshit poet, even though I have a book somewhere, is like I have never memorized a poem, and I don't think I ever could. And like my version of that Heather Crystal performance would be to just go up there and improv the whole way through. But those are two very different real strains. I have a poet friend, Leslie Edwards, and we always talk about the difference between writing and composing. And people like Heather and Leslie and Chris Toll, they were composers of poems that carved out each word and recarved it. But then there's people like Adam and me who are just like screaming forward improv and mixing sources constantly. Both are beautiful strains of poetry, and so both are beautiful ways of thinking, So
Yeah, and I think the similarity between the broader experimental poetry scene and the sort of indie RPG scene is just that breadth and diversity of every type of human experience and way of perceiving and way of creating is like welcome at the table and celebrated. So it's like we can all have different types of poetry that we're writing, but we're all exploring language or to some degree. And I think also on the receiving end, like, there are people who will memorize poems. There are people who will sit and listen to each word. And then, for a while I was doing these diagrams while people were reading, and I would just like take their words and like sketch with them. And then I would read those. Like I had for a while, that's all I read was just my portraits of other people's readings. And I think, that range of experience and creation is something that's so valuable in the indie scene. And I think one of the things that struck me as I started getting into it, like on Itch, like doing game jams, was just how it was like, oh shit, like anyone can make a troika background, like sweet, and like then I just had all, like, it was like these little conduits that made it possible to do so many different things, and allowed so many different people, to do so many different things.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Crawford he was the co-lead on the 2014 5e, and I guess he might have been the lead on the 2024 D&D. I forget, but he is super into William Blake, and apparently has seeded a bunch of William Blake Easter eggs throughout 5th edition. And again, you guys come on here and you're like, Justin, you were a poet, is not just a publisher, right?
Correct.
Cool. So, I didn't know I was going to get 3 experimental poets on the pod, but I'm certainly like, oh, this is absolutely fascinating. This is a very exciting development to my mind. Do you find that to be the general response when you're like, yeah, we're game designers who started out as poets?
It doesn't really come up that often.
Oh, really?
I don't say it. And when you said William Blake, I thought William Blake the accountant. I don't know.
But I think there's more than you would assume. Like Ken Bowman, he came from the same scene. He put out Maze of the Blue Medusa with
really?
The person we shall not name. And
yeah, I didn't know. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so Ken, we've known Ken for 20 years. Ken Rumble, another Ken, he's doing gaming stuff. And oh gosh, who was the dude that was working with he was doing some folk horror stuff. I'll remember his name in a minute. Long beard poet guy from Appalachia.
Who said that? Jamie Iredale?
He's gonna kill me.
Not Iredale, is it?
No. But I think there's more than you think. Even Brian Evanson, I roped him into doing a Mork board game, which is ridiculous. But yeah, that happened. There's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but.
Well, Jamie, you've invited me into a patronizing position where I'm going to tell my favorite William Blake story.
But not William Blake the accountant.
Not William Blake the accountant. William Blake the visionary romantic poet.
Yeah, love the guy.
So stop. I apologize then if you've all heard this story already. But apparently one day, young William goes for a walk, and he sees a river running. He sees people walking down the road. He sees clouds in the sky and angels in a tree, and he goes home. And mom and dad are like, "Hey, what'd you see on your walk, young William?" And he's like, "Well, I saw the river and the people walking and the clouds in the sky and some angels in a tree." And the parents are like, "Come again? Angels in a tree?" And he's like, "Yeah, I saw some angels just hanging out in this tree." And the response of his father is to beat him as punishment for lying. And of course, for people who don't know this is William Blake's whole thing. He would go to dinner parties and be like, "Oh, you want to talk to Jesus? Let me get his ghost in here, and you can talk to Jesus through me." Like, apparently a ton of fun at parties in the 19th century. But it's one of my favorite William Blake stories because it's just so wild and seems so realistic, you know.
Blake and Coleridge can be so dark. There's a Coleridge there's a Coleridge poem that is written on a piece of skin that he accidentally shaved off himself in the bath. Like, Coleridge is goth. Like, Coleridge is so deep goth and is such a liar, but in the way that like a poet should be a liar. Like, I did a lot of romantic poetry in my college days, and yeah, Coleridge, like Xanadu, that is some wild stuff. Definitely some proto LSD in that guy's diet. Way out there. All the romantics are wild. Like Pierce Shelley, like he has this poem Prometheus Unbound, which is all about like getting rid of the revenge cycle, right? Like, but it's a lot about like vultures ripping livers out of sides, and I don't know. It's all and we need all of them just so Mary Shelley can hate men so deeply, because they're all abhorrent men, right? Like, and like Mary Shelley just drops Frankenstein, and I don't know if you have ever listened to the audiobook of Frankenstein. You absolutely should, because it just draws out how utterly insufferable Victor Frankenstein is. And I think like the new movie, the Del Toro movie, does a pretty good job of that. But man, all those people were dark and wonderful, and everybody that's writing like those kinds of RPGs should spend some time with them, because they're madness.
Wow.
We should talk about games. I know.
I mean, this is we are, but okay. What do we want to say about games?
No, you just get to that moment of self-consciousness where you've just like gone down your particular geek road, you know. But yeah.
And we're done.
Yeah. Well, Justin, you mentioned Aesop Rock earlier, and speaking of going down rabbit holes, Jimmy, I won't go too crazy down into this, but I'm working on an Aesop Rock role-playing game that basically like creates a giant database of every single Aesop Rock lyric that then you can remix into weird characters and situations and things. And his work feels like a very like natural progression of like the kind of poetry that I was into, where it's like dense and smart, and like you can pretty much my thinking about Aesop Rock is like any one of his poems you could make a module out of, because there's so much going on, both in terms of characters and emotions and just bizarre stuff that's happening, and a lot of it isn't really explained. And I think that's, you know, again, thinking of the connection between poetry and play and poetry and games, like for me, it's so much of like breaking things down into little bits that then you can kind of collide against each other and see what happens. And that is very like hip hop influence, that's very sample influence, that's very rap influence, where it's kind of saying like, hey, let's grab all these materials and just arrange them a lot of times on the fly into things that haven't existed before.
Yeah. I think we've destroyed all of Ben's notes.
No. I find that it's very helpful to stop talking after a while. This has been much more of an interview than I usually do. Usually I kind of start getting quieter around quarter after, but you know, I was just so enthused and intrigued. But I mean, I can say something if people need me to say something, but if anybody else has something to say, go for it.
Something that obsesses me in playing game, I like to be a player. Like, I think anybody that's a game maker at some point was stuck as a forever DM. And since coming back, I've been a near never DM, and that's been fantastic. And so as a player, so much of the game is about character and about like, what is this brain? What is this life? And inhabiting it and stretching. And like, seeing your own crutches and patterns and destroying them and playing other things. I love Wander Home. But going back to your previous episode, like I love Wander Home, and I love how you inhabit these characters, and I love how you have to retire, right? It only goes to 6. It's like 6, and then you're out, I think, if I remember. Yeah, but even playing, with my D&D group, or playing sci-fi games with Adam and kind of the Stations crowd, or playing Justin's super dark games, like to me it's always about character. And I think in some of my groups you always have like the power gamer, and I just must frustrate the crap out of those people. I mean, in a Justin game where I played a witch, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to cocoon myself in somebody else's flayed skin to level up. That's how my character works. And it's just like, they're just like, what is that to someone that's playing like a video game version of role-playing games, But it's just, I think that's part of the fun too, when the group comes together, and there's the min-maxer, which, by the way, I'm so allergic to, like in life, not just games. And then like the person that wants to chill, and the person that does the voices, and you just all come together and you have a great night. And that's what the game is,
I think to Jamie's point, I hope I recently played Weird Heroes of Public Access with Joey Royale, and it's so simple. Your character is a public access TV show host, and you're supposed to create a character around that personality and what's your show about. And that's enough. That's all you need in this very simple game to have a hysterical time. I mean, that's all it is. And it's like UHF meets Scooby-Doo, and we were just on the floor crying, laughing. It was and that's all it was.
And the way games are like poetry is because, to me, that game and another game with a very different endpoint, 10 Candles, right? Which, if you want to talk about where poetry and games meet, it's 10 Candles. Like, if anybody's hearing this and doesn't know that game, like, it is a perfect game. Go get it, play it.
Can you tell the audience about it in case they don't know it?
Adam introduced me to it, but basically it's a game about the end of the world, and you're going to light 10 candles, and each round is going to end when a candle goes out, either burns out, or someone accidentally knocks it out, or someone intentionally puts it out. I guess that could happen too. But by the end of the game, you're all going to be dead, and there's absolutely no way to change it. And when we played it at PAX one year, I fell asleep during the game, which is one of my superpowers. I do this often. But I was going through some deep personal loss in my family, and like it just all intersected, and it changed the way I saw reality for months. Like that deep. Like if I could write a poem that could do that, I'd be like, okay, I'm done writing poetry. But just the way it makes you contend with this otherworldly force that will kill you all is just so beautiful and so well made. I still want to play the mashup of it where you're all dogs instead, which would be even sadder. But when we played, I think we were like 5 janitors, and Justin was like a performance artist.
Yes.
So we were obviously never going to save the world. But games can have such a simple conceit and just push you down a path of storytelling and contending with some really big ideas, and those ideas can be funny. Those ideas can be absurd. Those ideas can be existential. And I just think, Justin, when you were making Sickest Witch, like talking about like you were really wrestling with like, what's the thing that's going to should make me make this game? Like, what's going to be the difference in this game that's going to make it worth making? And I just hope every game maker is going through. I mean, I love the process of like, I love D&D, but could they change this one thing? But like, I think you can take that even deeper on like, what is it that you want to bring to gaming that hasn't been mechanicked well, or hasn't been foregrounded. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Well, as we're winding down, I should get to the plug portion. So Adam and Jamie, what do you have on Kickstarter right now?
Oh, did Adam freeze on us?
Uh-oh.
What do we have on
I'm back.
Kickstarter? Yes, what do we have on Kickstarter?
We have 100 Strangers, which is a collection of 100 weird sci-fi characters that you could use as PCs or NPCs, all of which illustrated amazingly by Roque Romero from Spain. They were basically, it came out from a generator that we've made over the years of just throwing lots of attributes into this perchance generator, and we would just hit generate and like tweak until we had an interesting character, and then Roque would illustrate it. And it's really focused on everyone other than the standard sci-fi tropes, because we really want to see the full spectrum of humanity and alien sentience in the future. So it's a zine that's like, there's no dashing pilots, but you do have like bored coroners or miswired zookeepers, bartenders, accountants, the normal folk in the universe. So we have that up. I think it's going to end in maybe 8 days on the 21st. But yeah, it's a zine.
And Justin, should people pick up Sickest Witch? What else would you point them to for you?
Yeah, go to sickestwitch.com. There's the core book, which I already held up. There's an adventure module called Blood Property. So that's the second adventure, because there's the intro one in the core book. And the Kickstarter that just wrapped is for the Coven box, which is a player aid thing with all the spells and runes from the core book are in card form with dice and a dice bag and some other fun stuff. But yeah, if you're going to PAX Unplugged or the Philly Area Gaming Expo, which these guys will be at too, we're all going to be there. I'll be at GaryCon as well. All with Sickest Witch, promoting all the witches from now on probably until I die.
And then your parts will be harvested and someone will make use of them for some spells.
So I guess I should do my little promotion too. If you are unaware, I have a book called Slaying the Dragon, A Secret History of Dungeons and Dragons. It's really good. Go get it. It's available everywhere. We have a Patreon to support this podcast. It is a mere $3 a month. And I think a week ago, I posted the seminar I did at Gamehole Con, where I went over 18 years of leaked Dungeons and Dragons financials. So if you want to know,
Writing that down.
hey, it's only $3 for a month. So please come join the Patreon. We also have a lot of other delightful things on the Patreon. I interview second edition designer Zeb Cook in the Hugh Hefner suite in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. There's a conversation between Ken Hite and Sandy Peterson about Cthulhu. So we certainly try to get you some value for that Patreon. But yeah, 18 years of D&D financials, that'll get some people's attention. So please go check it out.
Can I tell you my quick Zeb story? So I had put out one Kickstarter that was sort of successful. That was, just a card deck. And I went to a local bar, Atomic Books. They have the 8 bar in the back. It's a Daniel Close comic theme bar. Very cool. Talking to the owner, talking about the Kickstarter. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you were into tabletop gaming. And I was like, well, it's sort of a new thing for me. And it's like, oh, there's a guy over there sitting in the bar you should talk to. He worked on D&D. And Zeb's sitting there. It's First Friday, so there's a bunch of free food. He's eating his cheese balls and drinking his beer real fast. And so I chatted with him. And as you know, one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet gave me his number. I was like, oh, wow, that's really cute and cool. And then Ken Bowman came through town maybe 2 months later. He's like, hey, I want to run Maze of the Blue Medusa for you. Can you get some friends together? And I was like, yeah, sure. And this was like very, last minute. So I think I invited Jamie. You couldn't come. I invited Jimmy, and I texted Zeb Cook, not fully understanding who Zeb was. Like I knew, but I didn't know. And he came, and the look on Ken's face when Zeb came down into my basement, it was amazing. And I still sort of can't believe it happened. And it was just, I just think like Zeb has a magic to him, a generosity that you rarely see in anybody from any field. And I love that, like, he's part of the old guard, and I wish there were thousands more like him.
That's high praise. I'm going to close by asking, you said you run Infinity ships using Black Hack clones, is that right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. I'm going to have to check that out because I have not. So, all right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.